America, it's your favorite reporter coming at you live from the frozen wasteland that we call Penn State. Recently, we have seen a polarizing issue sweeping the nation. No, it's not vaping or a crippling addiction to anime or the godforsaken app that we call TikTok. It's much larger than that. That issue is none other than the phrase, "Okay, boomer." Now, viewers, you may be wondering, why exactly that phrase is such an issue? Well, as a quick overview, young people think it's a hilarious way to make fun of the older generation that failed them, much like my parents did in raising me. Meanwhile, older people believe that the phrase is an extremely offensive word to the point that it is seen as a slur. So, who's right in this conflict? Well, will "Okay Boomer" be the end of us? How is it cool and a part of nature when a lion eats a zebra alive, but when I do it, it's inhumane and grounds for arrest? Now, we'll go live to Ava Wendelkin, a reporter who's actually qualified for the job.
Thanks, Alex. While my fellow correspondent might be in the wrong about a lot of things, morally, he's right about one thing. "Okay Boomer" is a cultural phenomenon to be reckoned with. The term boomer, short for baby boomer, officially refers to the generation of children born during the post-World War II period of prosperity, with their name owing to the increased birth rate at the time. However, according to Urban Dictionary, a boomer is defined as a person who exhibits several of the following characteristics: being anywhere from 30 to 75, being white, owning a house in the suburbs, being balding, drinking Monster Energy Zero Ultra, calling their kids things like champ and big guy, owning a riding lawnmower that is the envy of all fellow boomers, hating and ridiculing millennials, waking up at 6 a.m. to mow their lawn with their massive fucking riding lawnmower, supporting Trump, and whining and dining at popular family chain Applebee's. Though this budding definition of one of the most culturally influential generations of the 20th century seems playful, some have taken offense to the phrase. "Hey, snowflake, don't "okay boomer" me at work," writes Market Watch writer Elizabeth Tippett, her byline caustically announcing that she'll see you in court for age discrimination. In fact, scores of tweets, articles, and even news segments have covered the problematic phrase that is seemingly causing a massive generational rift. But is this really the case? Have boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Zers really all been on the same page until now? "Okay Boomer" is not the cause of generational conflict, but rather a symptom of a greater cultural divide that has broken into the mainstream. The phrase represents much deeper rifts in culture, wealth, and perspectives on political correctness, social media, in addition to many other issues that are central to millennial thought.
I want your apology. Don't ever say that to me again.
I know, it's just, I said
The
it.
differences between baby boomers and the generations that have followed have long been examined, and it often comes down to a few distinguishing factors. One major force that has shaped the generations has been economic parity and disparity between them. Baby boomers, almost famously, grew up in a time of economic prosperity after the war, with a significant increase in the availability of consumer goods, transitions from production-based employment to service-based employment, which tended to lower class boundaries, and the movement out of cities and into the suburban sprawl. Baby boomers have been one of the most economically powerful generations in recent history, consistently holding over 20% more wealth than millennials throughout their lives, even at corresponding ages. This fostered for them an overall attitude of capitalistic fair play and a sort of centrism that placed strong faith in both the public and private sectors of the economy. Millennials, on the other hand, entered the job market during the Great Recession and felt the price of that timing. Unable to get a foothold in the job market or property ladder, they resorted to higher education, accumulating massive debts that never paid off in the job market. And Gen Zers grew up in that very same recession. Faced with a foreclosure crisis and massive unemployment early in their childhoods, Gen Z has seemingly developed a cynicism about government economic policy and about just how fair the job market is. Beyond economic differences, however, baby boomers and the generations that have followed have been fostered in incredibly different pop cultural spheres. Millennials and Gen Zers have functionally grown up with the internet as a supplemental part of their childhoods, adolescences, and young adulthoods, creating seemingly massive differences in our conceptions of communication, international engagement, leisure time, and countless other facets of modern life. That is not to say that baby boomers aren't on the internet, however. Over 82% of baby boomers belong to at least one social media site, according to marketing research from DMN3, and they're not afraid to make their presence known when it comes to fraught topics of discussion online.
How dare you!
Perhaps one of the greatest generational divides, however, can be seen in the realm of our values. To many millennials, the demographics of the boomer generation have come to represent an entrenched vanguard fighting for old, conservative, and narrow-minded beliefs. For instance, 44% of boomers approve of Trump, compared to only 27% of millennials. 79% of white millennials believe that immigrants strengthen our communities, whereas only 56% of white baby boomers would say the same thing. Millennials are by far the most democratic and liberal adult generation alive today, as well as the most racially diverse, and baby boomers trail sorely behind in all of those categories. The fact of the matter is that millennials are globally minded, a-religious, and progressive, and the same cannot be said of all boomers. Seemingly, one of the absolute greatest differences between the two generations comes down to the subject of climate change and how to tackle it. The belief has long been held by Gen Y and Gen Z that previous generations callously caused the warming of the globe with unfettered business practices and an ignorance of sustainability that has turned into carelessness. The numbers, however, show a different picture. According to MIT Age Lab research, boomers think of themselves as more environmentally conscious than millennials, and in the inverse, millennials believe themselves to be more environmentally conscious than boomers. There's deep irony there. Generational competition over something that both generations ostensibly feel similarly about. And while there's certainly stock to be placed in the idea that a self-conception of valuing something does not necessarily translate into action, and the idea that resentment is high because there is a feeling of having inherited this problem, of past generations being cavalier and greedy to our detriment, the numbers just don't exactly reflect such a severe divide.
I think there's a generation gap today as there was when I was young.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of, because as baby boomers we were airheaded, we just rebelled against everything. We rebelled against everything the World War II generation did, and then we hypocritically called them the greatest generation. And I don't really think that I've noticed there's that sort of gap.
In spite of so many seemingly fundamental differences, it could also be that so many of these divisions are artificial, a generational case of the narcissism of minor differences. The feud has been revved up by the media primarily for the sake of engagement, from sensational news segments to hasty think pieces to BuzzFeed videos of boomers and millennials balking at one another in mock horror.
What do you think of millennials?
Well, their parents told them they're special, they're not special. Their parents told them anything could happen to them, not anything can happen. Their parents told them it would be a happy ending. It's not going to be a happy ending. We don't know how it'll turn out. Got my fingers crossed.
How do you know it's going to be a bad ending?
Well, how could it turn out well under those circumstances?
Boomers were an idealistic generation once, too, rebelling against their parents and writing protest music against Vietnam in distinctly the same ways that millennials and Gen Zers have chafed against the system and organized rallies for the prevention of climate change. In the ways that we decried the senseless killings of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas students at the hands of a fellow student, they lamented the killing of 4 Kent State students at the hands of the National Guard. And while it's hard to deny that cultural paradigms are shifting and that we are products of our time period, maybe making divisions is nothing but a practice in aesthetic divides. Maybe it's more important to use our shifting ideas in order to connect to our similarities with those who came before, rather than pretending that we have inherited nothing from them. I don't know. I'm just a news reporter. But I do know that I'm signing off for tonight. This has been Ava Wendelkin in the field. Good night, good luck, and back to you in the studio, Alex.
I didn't realize it was my part. Well, viewers, there you have it. For better or worse, we have now deconstructed OK Boomer for you. The crew here at Section 11 wishes you a Merry Chris Wanzika. Thank you, and signing out.
Okay, Boomer.